Good morning. It's Monday, October 20th, 2008. This is WFTL Bytes, your occasiodaily FOSS and Linux news show. With me, your host, Marcel Gagné. Mark those words. FOSS, free and open source software. Specifically mark these words, free and open. Because it may be one day that we look back on those words in the same way that they looked back on Camelot, in the musical Camelot. For one brief shining moment, there was free and open in this world. Because it's starting to look bad again on Monday. Geez, I thought, it was something from last week, but it's carrying over into Monday. Let's start with Grok.law. Grok.law today has a report from Microsoft's Horatio Gutierrez, I hope I've got Horatio's name pronounced correctly, where he basically threatens to sue any company, including a company like Red Hat, that fails to sign a licensing deal of the type that Novell signed with them. And I quote, "If every effort to license proves not to be fruitful, ultimately we have a responsibility to customers that have licenses and to our shareholders to ensure our intellectual property is respected." In other words, we're going to sue you guys. See, I'm so depressed I forgot to put on my press hat. And my press hat today is, I think I need to go to some other place, Italia. Just for a holiday. I need a holiday. What can I tell you? Anyway, also in the news today, since we're talking about, intellectual property and other nastinesses and so forth, InsideHigherEd.com, a website that presumably reports on inside higher education, has a story that speaks highly of bureaucratic stupidity at the Congress level, specifically when it comes to policing peer-to-peer technologies, file sharing, blah, 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 and so forth. Get this. They polled or interviewed or worked with 321 different universities and colleges across the United States and discovered that it costs an average of over $100,000 a year to police and implement policies to basically make sure that the students aren't sharing music files. Over $100,000 a year. These are institutions that are permanently cash-strapped and can't buy new books and so forth. Depressing, folks. They also discovered that large research universities might have to pay in well over that amount, coming up closer to $500,000 a year, $350,000 to $500,000 a year. Just to make sure that kids aren't swapping songs. Think about that for a second. Speaking of other abominations, we know that the DMCA is an abomination. All right-thinking people know that, and I don't mean right as in right of Attila the Hun. I mean right as in correct-thinking people. Well, in Canada, we have some bad news because we just re-elected the Conservative government of Stephen Harper up here. And Jim Prentice, the minister in charge of Bill C-61, which was meant to be a Canadian version of the DMCA, is back. And of course that means that we're probably going to see Bill C-61 rise from the undead like a zombie going after your brain. Brain, I must have brain. Anyway, Michael Geist on his website is, working with people trying to make sure that this doesn't happen. And so, remember what I said last week about fighting evil wherever you find it? Well, this is an evil. Fight it, folks. I'm talking to the Canadians primarily, but you Americans, the DMCA, fight it, for goodness sakes. Anyway, speaking of copy protection and making sure that nobody gets your stuff, Technologizer website has 25 arguments against copy protection. 25, as if you needed more than one. The most basic of which from my perspective is that it always hurts consumers. It's a self-sustaining industry, copy protection. It always hurts consumers. And let's be honest, it assumes that we're all criminals. All of us. Nobody can be trusted out there. I resent that, and I'm sure a lot of people out there resent that as well. And here's the other thing as well. Have you ever heard of a copy protection scheme that wasn't beat? Come on! Somebody comes up with a copy protection scheme and you discover that all you need is a black magic marker over the inside of the DVD. Remember that one? Jeez! For goodness sakes, come on, come up with something a little bit better. And finally, I'm going to wrap this up with old Stephen J. Von Nichols, one of the open source world's web curmudgeon cynics or whatever. And he's got a little article called Why Good People Make Bad OS Choices. And some of those bad OS choices, as far as he's concerned, start right at the store where you're trying to buy a computer. Somebody walks in and says, "Hey, I'd like to buy one of those new little netbooks that's got Linux pre-installed." And the guy says, "Oh, you don't want Linux. Well, you don't want Vista. You want XP. Well, if you really have to use something, you can use a Mac as well, but whatever." Actually, Stephen seems to imply that buying a Mac is better than buying Vista. I tend to agree on that count. But he also gives you 3 steps to help people make good choices when they go into a computer store to buy not only a good computer, but a good OS. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. Remember, go out there, fight evil. And that's it for today. As somebody actually requested that I say, I'm finished instead of I'm done. So there you go. I'm finished. Bye. God, I need more coffee.